Oh, is it recording?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Michael Varhola. I'm with Skirmisher Publishing and D-Infinity Online, and I'm here with some of my playtesters and best friends tonight, and we're going to be continuing with our In the Footsteps of Hercules adventure for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So In the Footsteps of Hercules is a universal source book published by Skirmisher that describes a pilgrimage trail in our Dark Ages fantasy version of Greece. And we have been playtesting it and playing through it using the 5th edition D&D rules. So when we begin tonight, our characters are on the island of Crete. So Hercules, as part of his pilgrimage or part of his labors, went to the island of Crete, captured one of the great bulls of Crete, and took it back to mainland Greece. And that is the labor of Hercules, known as the Bull of Crete. So our characters recently, in our last session, voyaged from the Peloponnesian Peninsula, from the city of Nafplion, across the wine dark sea to the port of Heraklion on the northern coast of Crete. And Crete is a weird, dangerous place. There were only about a half dozen fortified communities on the entirety of this huge island, and the rest of it is just overrun by monsters of various sorts. So the party has had a long day. When we began, they arrived at the port of Heraklion, which is run by a Greek trading conglomerate called the Minoan League. They arrived at dawn. They joined a convoy that went 3 miles inland to the reconstructed Palace of Knossos, which is the seat of the government of Crete and the residence of the king of Crete, who they haven't seen, of course, because he is, doesn't meet every pilgrim that shows up. They were welcomed once they stated their business and given some apartments there where they could stay. And they've pretty much been spending the day visiting the parts of the palace that were publicly accessible, spending time in the stables where the bulls of Crete live, a couple of dozen of these sacred, huge, beautiful, but very dangerous looking bulls, and training with the bull dancers. So this evening, the characters are going to be watching a bull dancing ritual, and those who want to try to participate in it are going to be able to do so. If I remember correctly, all of the characters decided they wanted to be part of the training, but you all haven't, you're not going to get forced to be part of the ritual if you don't want to. Before I babble anymore, why don't we just go through and have everyone just very briefly say who your character is, identify them by profession, race, and gender, and any interesting things you want to reveal about them, and then we will jump right into it. So why don't we start with you, Brenda?
Abderos is a monk dedicated to Hermes Inotios, his god of travel aspect. As that kind of monk, he protects the roads. He's currently on this pilgrimage with folks, in part doing his job and in part also, obviously, walking in footsteps.
That's perfect. Amanda?
I'm playing Vafea. She is a dyer, so she's one of Skirmisher's own expert classes. That's her actual character class. So she's basically a tradeswoman who is doing a little bit of adventuring and going on the pilgrimage before she settles down and starts her own shop.
Perfect. Penny?
I am playing Deianira. Deianira is a Scythian ranger who is off to have adventures in the world.
That's perfect. And Paul?
So I'm Chaz, a satyr with the goat horns and goat legs. Mostly a druid, worships Dionysius and everything that comes along with that. A little bit of a bard as well. Just likes having a good time and is just along collecting some souvenirs.
Perfect. Dad?
So I am Eumayos, a semi-retired soldier from the island of Kos. I am proud of being a peltast, which is a light infantryman. I am rarely seen without my foxskin cap, which is associated with that specialization. And I use my old service javelin as a walking.
That is perfect. A good party to be sure. Now, can everyone see my cursor when I move it on the screen over our image, or can you not see me moving it?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So over here in this upper right corner are the apartments where your characters are staying. You came in from the north on this raised walkway and entered the palace and were allocated some apartments where you could stay during your visit at the palace. What you can't see are the heavy new walls that surround this core of the palace complex. So in the old days, some of you who know history might know that the Palace of Knossos was never a heavily fortified palace. But now it is because of all the hazards that exist on Crete. So when we begin today, you have had a long and exhausting, but pretty rewarding day, I would imagine, training with the young, mostly young priest/acrobats or priestess/acrobats who participate in these bull dancing rituals with these sacred bulls at the Palace of Knossos. And when we begin, you're in this building, which is a training facility. It contains the stables of the bulls on the lower level. It's late afternoon. You're just having something cool to drink with the people who have been training you and spending the day with you. And you're getting ready to go back to your apartments and take a nap before the feast and ritual takes place that evening. And somebody comes rushing down from an interior stairway and yells something to the people that you're with, and then goes dashing back up the stairs. And you could see that the athletes that you're with get really excited, and they sort of beckon to you and go running for the stairs. And as they hit the stairs and start running up, you hear a series of gongs going off. You hear 3 long gong bongs, beat chimes, bong, 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 and the acrobats go running up the stairs, and you can hear just throughout the palace complex sort of a clamor of noise. Something is obviously going on.
I was ready for them to do like backflips off the stairs.
Oh, they do all that sort of thing. One of them leaps up, and of course, sure.
They
They're always
parkour
crazy.
everywhere
Actually,
they go.
what's
Yeah,
that?
right. Well, that's
So
how acrobats are. They're always like that.
Yeah, I say they parkour everywhere they go.
Right.
Exactly. Parkour was actually invented in Crete about 2000 BC. So you've been abandoned at this point and are down in the training hall, and everybody else has gone running up the stairs. And you can hear sort of a clamoring around you, and it sounds like people have taken to the roofs throughout the palace.
Well, that's super ominous, and we know that it's pretty dangerous around here. So I would assume like some kind of assault is happening. I don't.
They beckoned to us, right?
Did they?
They did.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
going to follow them. Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
Well, by the time you make it up to the roof, the stairs go up 2 levels from where you are. By the time you make it up to the roof, the first thing you sense is that there are just hundreds of people on the roofs all around you. And they're looking to the south. They're looking toward this strange structure to the south, which you can see. So the first thing you notice is the people all around you, and then you notice that they're all facing in this direction and looking to the south. That's the first thing you notice. Their backs are to you. They're blocking whatever you can see. And as you move forward and sort of press your way in between them and make your way over to the wall so that you can look and see what's going on, a great shadow falls over the open area. And as you glance up, you are probably disoriented and don't know exactly what you're looking at. Your first thought is that it's a bird or a whale or a cloud. And what it is a great lozenge-shaped thing of human construction with what looks like a small ship hanging beneath it. And it would appear to be, it's what we would call a zeppelin or a dirigible.
Right. Airship.
It's an airship. And all of you would recognize this airship from books that you've seen, pictures from the ancient world. Apparently this was a thing. These airships were a common thing. You, Brenda, your character has in fact seen, if not this specific airship, one just like it a couple of times in Coast City, because in the warehouse district there is an aerodrome, and an airship that looks just like this takes off from it. And the reason I say it's one that you think you've seen is because it has a big circle with a tau symbol, a T, inside of it, right on the side of the huge canvas balloon part of it. You probably would have seen this too, Eumayos, a couple of times, because there's reputed to be an ancient aerodrome near the town you live on the western end of Coast, and a couple of times you've seen a ship that looks like this fly over it as if it were coming from Coast or some other direction. The rest of you have never seen one of these. It is just completely new to you. And it begins to descend. And as it does, lines get dropped from it. And you see Cretean sailors come rushing from all directions and grab the lines and start tying them off on rings that are mounted in this courtyard. And it finally settles. And this is all taking some amount of time. The airship is clearly being brought in very, very carefully. And obviously its arrival was not a surprise, because there were, in fact, Cretean sailors waiting to greet it and to tie it off. And presently, you can see a delegation of palace officials goes up the stairs to the platform here, and a group of people comes out of the gondola, the ship section of the ship. And the people who are with you, the Creteans, they're all very excited. They've seen this before, but obviously it doesn't happen very often. So if you have questions, there are people around you can ask.
Okay, I'm gonna say for sure my character has never seen anything like this before, had no concept that it was, so I'm gobsmacked.
Make a perception check, Dianara.
5.
A 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't notice anything else. Anybody else who wants to make a perception check to see if there's some other thing they notice is certainly welcome to. So just chime in if you have a number that's good. And I'll tell you if you note anything of interest that you can share with your friends.
I have a 10. Well, there you go. 18.
Well, that's not good either. What you don't need to make perception checks for, however, are to note that a group of people have come out of the gondola of the airship and are being greeted and met by the Cretean delegation. You're seeing about 8 people. One of them is a very, very ancient, bald man in very plain looking robes, all right? 6 of them look like bodyguards who are wearing studded leather armor and have full face masks and a variety of weapons on them. And one of them just looks like a normal guy, an adventurer. He looks like he's wearing light armor and has a short sword. And there are a bunch of crew members unloading boxes and bales from the ship. And then presently, this procession starts heading down the stairs with this ancient bald man and the bodyguards that stay close around him, and the Cretean delegation, and then this man who hangs toward the back and sort of gives orders to the people who are carrying the various boxes. And then they disappear from sight. It looks like they probably enter the palace complex over here. The crowds start to break up. Your handler says, well, you probably need to get some sleep. Yes, Amanda.
I had gotten an 18 on that perception, so I was wondering what else I might have noticed.
Well, you notice, Vafea, what you assume to be eagles flying, maybe 4 eagles flying around the Zeppelin, as if they had escorted it in. You kind of, in the back of your mind, you sort of sense that these eagles were coming in with it like an escort. And you can see now that everything is sort of breaking up, that they return to one of the towers over here, where they appear to have some sort of an eyrie, some sort of a lair. And they are not eagles. They look really big, bigger than...
Do they only show up after you've already destroyed the ring, or...
Oh, they're 4-legged eagles.
They are 4-legged eagles. They are eagles with lion bodies and eagle heads and eagle wings. They are Cretan griffins.
They're griffins.
I like how sassy they look.
They are very sassy. They are very sassy griffins. And they look sassy, flying around and putting on a display. But they apparently live here because they then turn and fly over to this eyrie on the top of one of these towers. So they apparently are part of the, well, I don't know, Royal Menagerie, Royal Guard Force, Royal Pets, who knows? But there are griffins here. And all of you could see this now because Vafea can point it out to everyone. So,
that's cool.
Has anyone mentioned who are these visitors that have arrived in this flying thing?
Nobody's mentioned anything. Nobody has said anything. But by the time you make it back to your apartments, well, you know what? Abderos, you can make an intelligence check when you look at the visitors, if you like.
Sure. Somebody from Coast. Let's see, 18 plus 1, 19.
Make one more check for me too, please. Because
Okay.
there's 2 people you might recognize.
Turnin is one of them, and the other is...
Who?
Turnin is one of them, and the other one is, I don't know, because I rolled I got a 13.
Okay. Yeah, you do recognize one of them. So you're wondering who these people are? Well, Abderos recognizes one of them. One of them is a Cohen named Andre Taranin, who is noted for being one of the only living people to have witnessed the Great Cataclysm. And according to legend, he was in an airship like this one, flying over the Cyclades Islands when Thera exploded, and was one of the few people on board his ship that was then driven in the maelstrom into the ground on some distant shore, on Crete maybe.
Makes him over 100 years old.
That makes him well over 100 years old. If he was 5 or 6 years old and with his grandfather on some trading expedition when he saw the Great Cataclysm, then he would be well over 100 years old. That's correct. Yeah.
At least 106, because Hecaton is called Hecaton because it's 100.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're even a few years past that.
Right. Yeah, because
this timeline, this storyline is past that. So yeah, he's probably 110 years old, and still appears to be walking on his own. Of course, people do cling right around him. If he tipped over, he'd land on one of these bodyguards and not the ground. But he is
Very convenient. He has a nice soft bodyguard to fall on.
Right.
Exactly. But you would have seen him, Abderos, during some festival where he was like the honorary marshal of a parade in Coast,
sure,
something like that.
He's one of the captains of industry and
He's
codes.
one of the captains of industry. He was part of a trading family before the Great Cataclysm, and he is part of a resurgent trading empire right now. And he's the only person that you know of, that you've ever heard of, who supposedly still has airships.
Right.
So he's a big deal. He's the equivalent of a billionaire, very enigmatic. He's sort of the Howard Hughes of his age. So presently, the doors to your apartments open. You're all out in the main room, getting ready to go to your various chambers and have a nap before the dinner. And the man dressed in common clothing, who was behind the entourage, comes walking in, glances over at you, waves, and then gives directions to the people who are bringing a whole series of crates in. It looks like he's probably, I don't know, we can sort this out, but probably 40-ish, I would guess. Pretty burly. He looks like he has sort of a military demeanor. He's got a number of tattoos, including one of a short sword crossed with a trident. You can make, Eumayos, Abderos, you can both make intelligence checks to see if you recognize what that tattoo is. He gives directions to the people who are bringing in a whole series of trunks and crates, who set those down for him. He walks over to a small table and glances in the pitcher that's there and pours himself a glass of wine. He guzzles it down in one gulp, pours himself a second glass of wine, takes a sip, and nods and smiles at all of you. Does anyone, would you get on your intelligence check, Eumayos?
13.
13, well, you are Cohen military. So I will allow you to recognize that as, that's common knowledge for you. It wouldn't be common knowledge for anyone else. That is the emblem of the Cohen Marines.
Cool.
Crossed short sword and trident. It's the sword of Kos crossed with a trident, and that is the emblem of the Cohen Marine Corps. And it's a faded tattoo, one that this guy probably got 25 years before. But he directs these Cretan servants to stack all of his boxes for him, and then dismisses them. He gulps down his wine. He looks over at you and nods and smiles and says, well, I didn't know I'd have roommates, but it's good to meet you all. I'm Themistocles.
I'm guessing we all make introductions. I know I will anyway.
Okay.
Well, he's drinking wine. I'm drinking wine.
Yeah, okay. It's wretched wine. It's some of the worst wine you've ever had. It's very sour and very fresh.
Green wine.
What's that?
It's green wine. Yay.
It is the sort of wine that they use for day drinking on Crete.
To discourage day drinking.
It is fermented. It's fermented just enough to qualify as wine.
So it's more like the juice you forgot in the back of the fridge than actual wine.
Well, it is reminiscent of the wine that I once had at a festival on Crete, and my host said to me, he says, "Oh yes, this is the Cretan wine. They ferment it for a week in a mayonnaise jar."
Oh.
So
Chaz will prance over and point out, this wine is wretched. You might like it a little better chilled, and I'll chill the wine with a prestidigitation.
Well, I presume that Themistocles is good-natured and receptive toward Chaz, and perhaps even feels a sense of familiarity with him. And he toasts you and says, well, in the name of Dionysus, then. So, Yamas. So he drinks some of his wine, and the servants take all of his chests and containers to one of the private rooms in the apartments that you're in. And he looks around. He says, So how long are you all here for?
How long are we here for? We're only expecting to be here a couple of days, right?
Yeah, probably.
So the story says we leave. Duh.
Till the GM says we're done.
Great.
No,
Story length.
Until
right.
I run out of quests and ways to build XP.
I'll tell him we're here for the bull dancing, and I'm not sure if we might stay a day or two after that, but that's the thing that we're here for.
He nods. He says, "Oh, is that tonight? I'd heard about that. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I bet it'll be a good feast too, right? Maybe they'll bring out the good wine for that."
One can only hope.
Right. That'd be nice.
The gods willing, he says. Well, I do hope the wine gets better because I'm probably going to be here the better part of a couple of months. So ideally, it will only get better. Well met to all of you. I could tell you were on your way off for your evening rest. So, but I'm just going to be here drinking until I get summoned. I'm not on duty for another day or so. So I'm at liberty until tomorrow.
Are you part of the garrison, or are you associated with the owner of the airship?
He nods. He says, "Yeah, that's the Tyrannan airship. I'm a military advisor. I'm here to help the Cretan garrison learn how to use a cartload full of special things that were brought up from the coast and which I have been assured arrived yesterday." And you remember that you accompanied a convoy of wagons with heavy crates on them. And now that you recall, they did in fact have burned onto them the Tyrannan Tau symbol. So he explains to you that he's an artillerist. He specializes in heavy weapons, and that there are some new heavy weapons that got put to good use in the defense of the port when it got attacked a few months before. So the Tyrannan representatives have made an arms deal with the monarchy of Crete. And part of that deal is that they've got to provide a trainer to train the Cretan garrison on how to use the flame projectors that they are going to be mounting on their walls in an attempt to hold off the next ghoul assault when it occurs. So he's here for at least a month and probably two until the Cretan garrison is satisfied that they can use these weapons. So he's a military contractor who's retired from the Cohen Marines. You recognize him now, Abderos. He's one of the heroes of the resistance. He's one of the people who fought against the Titanic coup that took over the city many years before. So you've seen him marching in parades. He's one of the people that gets a stipend for life from the city of Kos for the great service provided to it in times past. So he's a hero of Kos and an artillerist, and he's here to train the local people how to use these flame weapons that have just been bought at great expense by the monarchy of Crete, and which will require fuel and maintenance and upkeep and retraining indefinitely, because that's the way these things work.
I asked him how he got through the dungeons of Pandora.
He says that they were not as bad as he'd heard they'd be. All right. Well, at any point, if anybody wants to intercede with something they want to say or do or know or talk about, let me know. Otherwise,
I think we should probably rest before the festivities tonight.
Yep. So everybody can have a glass of wine if they want, and then retire to your rooms. There are overhead fans that are keeping the air flowing and making it as pleasant as possible. All the rooms have high ceilings. You've never actually been in a house that was as comfortable as the one that you're in. You've never been in a house that's as well designed as the one that you're in. Greek houses tend to be well designed and comfortable, but this has good airflow. It's got overhead fans. It's got flowing water, running water, which you've never seen before. It's got flush toilets, which you've never seen before. So it is the most sophisticated house you've ever been in. And it's just the guest house. So
Cool.
presumably the king has a gold-plated flush toilet. You just don't know.
Toilets that empty themselves, boats that fly.
Place
What do
is
they think of next?
crazy.
So you all end up having a more or less good rest. And sometime after sundown, at sundown, there's another series of chimes, and one of the servants that's lurking about tells you that that's to indicate that the gates are being closed for the night. So they cannot be opened until morning. And he says that means you've got about an hour until the dinner. So people start getting cleaned up and dressed and whatnot. And presently, after about an hour, your handler, the concierge that is there to attend to your needs, comes and says, well, if you follow me, those of you who are going to be joining the bull dancers, I will take you to where they're assembling and getting ready for the ritual. The rest of you, I can just take you to where you're going to be sitting for dinner. So who is for what at this point? So he glances at you, Abderos.
I'm gonna dance with bulls.
You're going to dance with the bulls. All right. He nods, and you look athletic and strong, and he doesn't seem overly surprised at that.
He flexes all 11 of his strength.
He flexes. Well, but you look fit, and you might only be 11 strength, but you are a monk, which means
He's fit and agile. He moves well.
Exactly. He looks over at you, shopkeeperess Vafea.
I also intend to dance with the bulls.
Oh, damn.
Oh,
He
damn.
nods with approval, and he looks over at you, Dianar, and he knows damn well that if these other two are going to dance with the bulls, you can tell he's going to be shocked if you say anything. But yes, you are.
I've already got my hair done.
Yeah, your bull dancing hair done.
Yeah, so that it's out of the way.
Right.
All right. He looks over at you, Chaz. He doesn't know what to make of you.
Well, I'd like to at least say hi to the bulls. They have horns. I have horns. Of course, I'll dance with them.
Now, you have seen the bulls, and you have said hello to them because you spent the day in the training facility. So you've been able to pat the bulls. They are some of the biggest, most dangerous-looking bulls you've ever seen. But that's a yes. You're going to be dancing with the bulls.
Yeah, and as a druid, at some point I'll be able to shape change into a creature I've seen, and it'll be useful to be able to shape change into the biggest, most dangerous-looking bull I've ever seen.
Well, that's probably true. Is everyone seeing? Am I screen sharing a fresco at this point?
I still see the very lithe-looking griffin.
Yeah.
We still see Sassy Griffin.
Okay.
That's it.
Reading from share. Give me a second here. Why is this fighting me? Stop share. There we go. And this, of course, is the most famous fresco of bull dancing in the world. I grew up with its likeness in my home. It was always on a wall in my home when I was growing up. And lots of different variations on this are in the palace that you're in. So we only have one that remains some 3,700 years later, but presumably it was a common sort of motif and maybe even a training manual type image. So these images were used throughout the day while you were training. And remember, you were using a kind of mechanical bull. There was a fake bull on tracks that was spring loaded. And when it would shoot forward, the dancers would go forward and they would do the bull dancing routine. So basically, this is what's going to happen, guys. Can someone who's never danced with a bull actually dance with a bull after one day of training? I don't know. Realistically,
We're going to get hurt.
You could get hurt. Realistically, probably you can't be expected to do to the same standards, something the people who train as a ritual activity do for years and years and years. So this is the expectation. This is how we're going to handle this. If you want to try this, you can try it. It's going to be a tough thing for you to do successfully. So this is how we're going to do it. When one of these bull dancers dances, well, I'll describe it. The ritual begins. The ritual begins. You are all in the courtyard of the Palace of Crete. So we'll go back to our courtyard image. You're in the central courtyard, which is here. There is a royal viewing area, which is over here.
We're not seeing it, Mike.
Oh yeah, that went away.
All right. Give me a second here. Thank you for letting me know.
Would love that D8, Chaz.
D8.
Yeah, Bardic Inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna need some of those buffs.
Definitely gonna need a little bit of help.
Conveniently, I have enhance ability memorized.
Oh, look at that.
All
And
right.
jump.
So
Yeah.
are you seeing the courtyard now, or the palace?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the central courtyard here is now
Mhm.
illuminated with torches. There are areas set up on balconies surrounding it where people are going to be eating and dining and watching the ritual. The courtyard itself doesn't have anybody in it except for people who are going to be participating in the ritual because it's dangerous to be down in the courtyard. So the ritual begins with a couple of experienced bull dancers going out just to show how it's done. So a bull is let loose from one end of the courtyard, and this is what this bull does. It is trained to charge straight across this courtyard. And 3 of these dancers run straight at it. And as they approach the bull, you could see that they project their arms forward, they slam into the horns of the bull, they somersault over the head of the bull, their feet touch on its back, they somersault again, and they land on the ground behind it. And you see this happen with 3 dancers in rapid succession, and you hear the oohs and ahs of the crowd as they do this. So they do it perfectly. This is exactly how it's meant to be done. Okay. You know from your training, and you have this reminded, you're reminded of this, that these people are exposing themselves to the bull and making themselves the most vulnerable to it that they could be. So if they succeed in what they're doing, it looks really good and it's really impressive. If they were to fail, they would presumably get gored by the bull, flung some distance ahead of it where they would land on the heavy, on the paving stones of the courtyard, and then be trampled by the bull. So it isn't like even fighting a bull in combat where one of these things might charge you and you'd get your shield up and you would try to get out of the way, and if it hit you, it could hurt you. This is you deliberately exposing yourself to the bull in a way that will maximize the damage it can inflict on you if it hits you. If you fail to dance with the bull has its way with you and will be able to do awful things to you. And you know from the training that people die periodically doing this, both in ritual and in training. So this is what you're signing on to do. Now, we're going to have everybody make 2 rolls. Don't roll anything yet. I'm going to explain to you how we're going to do this. First of all, you have to decide whether you want to be assisted by some of the coaches or if you want to just do this on your own. So the people who want to be assisted by coaches are going to be the ones that go first because this is the least impressive demonstrations. And basically, you're going to get to attempt to do what you just saw, and you're going to be able to roll your acrobatics check or your athletics check at advantage because you've got a couple of coaches running along with you, telling you what to do and helping guide you as you hit the bull and do your routine over it. Okay. So you're gonna, each of you, whether you're assisted or not, are going to make 2 skill checks. One is an athletics check or an acrobatics check. So either strength or dex, whichever you're better at. Okay? And that you can be assisted at if you want to be. The other is a performance check to see how good it looks. So the idea is you're all athletic characters, you're all adventurers. There's a reasonable chance that because you know what you need to do, you're going to be able to make it over the top of the bull's head and somehow slide across its back and somehow land behind the bull. That's your first check. That's your athletics check, or your acrobatics check. The performance check is to see if you can also make it look good. Okay? So you're going to be making 2 checks. If you have any kind of power-ups or buffs or things that you want to use, you need to decide which of them you're applying to, whether it's going to apply to the check to vault over the bull or whether it's going to apply to the check for performance to see if it looks good when you jump over the bull or looks good when you fail to jump over the bull or whatever. And you can't get assistance for the performance check. They can help you physically get over the bull, but whether you make it look good is completely up to you. Okay? So
I have a question.
yes.
I have a jump spell. Is that the kind of thing that would be useful, or is that only good for jumping a longer distance?
There is no way that that would not be useful. That is only going to be useful for what you're doing. Yes. That will be extremely useful. As a matter of fact, seeing as we're playtesting, let's try to figure out what the logistics of that might be.
Actually, it's funny that Penny asks that because I have Step of the Wind, which is an ability I've never actually used.
And what does it do? It's a monk ability, I know.
It's a monk ability. It allows you to use disengage or dash as a bonus action. That's the part that I'm less interested in, though it is useful.
Right.
It doubles my jump distance.
See, that would be useful for this too.
That's what I thought might be true.
And jump triples my jump distance, so I was
Oh my
thinking
god.
that might help get me like over the bull or something. Would it give me advantage? Is that how we'd play it, or?
Probably, that'd be the easiest way for how we would play it.
Yeah.
I would say that if we want to keep it relatively simple, Abderos's monk ability, your jump spell, those would both do the same thing mechanically, which is to say, just give you advantage on the roll.
Right.
I would think. And then if somebody wanted to also use guidance or be subject to Bardic Inspiration, then that would also add to either the attempt to jump over the bull or the performance check to see how good it looks when you do it. So
imagine a spell like jump or my Step of the Wind is getting us over the bull. It's not necessarily making us look good doing it.
Because that's not the point of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a spell that just yeets you into the air. It's not
a
going to look good.
Right.
I can cast 3 jump spells, but that doesn't leave me any spell slots for casting heal if we don't make
for
it.
when the ghouls attack
So,
later.
so as it happens, I also memorized jump. So maybe you cast 2 and I can cast 2. And that covers everybody in the party except
bootstrapping bastards.
Abderos,
They're well prepared.
who doesn't need it. And
I don't
I also
need it.
have enhance ability. I'm going to use that to enhance my charisma.
I have a -1 charisma. My performance is going to be terrible.
Ooh.
Well, I'm a bard, so I want it to look good.
I need to grab my player's handbook real quick.
Hold on. I need a rule book for all of the shenanigans we're playing.
So with the jumps, we can basically give everybody advantage on jump. And then I could, with
Sure.
enhance ability, give one other person an enhanced charisma.
Well, do any of the spells require concentration, Paul? 'Cause
Yes, the enhance ability, but not jump. Jump lasts for 1 minute.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, and you can cast that even after you cast the enhance ability.
Right.
You cast the enhance ability. God, you guys might actually make this happen. You cast the
And
enhance
I have
ability.
Bardic Inspiration, 2 uses that I could throw out there too.
So the bard
Anything to help with my -1 charisma, Paul.
Well, why do you need charisma?
For
For
the
the
performance check.
performance.
For your performance,
Make it look good.
yeah, you can use your strength or your dexterity for leaping over the bull, but you have to make 2 skill checks. One is to see if you can make it over the bull. The other is to see if you can make it over the bull, but also make it look right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Abderos is notorious for not making things look right or saying things right.
Right. So we know Abderos is technically competent, but unappealing.
I'm very unappealing.
We need charisma
except
for
for,
style.
except for
Style points.
Abderos's abs. Very
Right.
appealing abs.
And how about animal handling? Eumayos has a +5 for animal handling. Would that help here?
I don't know. That's a good question. To what I guess what I would say is, if you
That's
wanted
relevant.
animal
I can see
handling
it.
instead of your athletics or acrobatics, I would allow that. I'd allow whichever was better. I want this to play to your strengths. I mean, basically, you have to get. I've set the DC on this as difficult, and I've set it at 20. I could have
wow.
reasonably and realistically set it at 25, but I don't think I want to do that. So it's a DC 20 skill check, which means there are ways you can tweak this in your favor, and obviously you are. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to do DC 20, and then there is no DC, there is no difficulty class for the performance check. That's just the number that you get. And you know if you get, a 5 that you look wretched, and we know if you get a 20 that you look really good. And the way we're going to handle this in the published version of this is experience points will be based on this. So if you accept assistance on this, you're only going to get half the experience points for succeeding at it. But the better you succeed, the more experience points you'll get. Okay.
I think you should get experience points for a spectacular failure.
Yeah, if you roll a 1 on acrobatics and a 20 on performance, that's got to be entertaining.
And
well, this is true.
But you have to be able to describe it.
Yeah. That's good. And you have to be able to survive 40 points of damage, which is the maximum you can inflict, because the rest of it will be moot. People will be saying, "Oh my God, that Amazon! Did you see? She looks so good. She looks so good as its hooves sunk into her, and it trampled across her."
The blood splatter was so decorative.
Right. Okay, so is there anybody who is going to attempt this with assistance? I'm feeling that there probably is not.
No, I think we've decided that we're just going to buff each other through this.
Okay. So, talk me through. Let's decide. Okay, let's figure this out. So, Paul, your enhance ability lasts an hour and it requires concentration. Who are you casting it on, and which ability are you enhancing?
Let's see. I'm going to cast 1 on myself on charisma. And then the second one, I mean, who would like to look good the most? That's kind of the question.
Well, Eumayos has a +0 for charisma.
Okay.
And me too.
Okay, so let me get this straight, Paul. Even though it's a concentration spell, you're going to use it on one person and concentrate on whoever goes first, and then you're going to use it again on either yourself or the other person afterwards. So that's sort of your idea.
Actually, back that up. I have 3 uses of that. Yeah, so I propose I go last. Just because that way, if I somehow get decimated by the bull,
it won't affect everybody else.
It won't affect everybody else.
Okay.
Or at least towards the end. Anyway, so like I said, I'll enhance ability, charisma on myself, and I can do that for 2 other people in the party, whoever wants it.
Okay. So you have 3 enhanced abilities, and then you've got.
I've got 4 jumps, but I think Penny's going to use 2, and I'll use 2.
And then Abderos won't use the artificial jump, the magical jump, because what Abderos does for game purposes is going to be just the same for purposes. Okay. And then
And you-
Atlas, when you all are drinking in future encounters, is going to be able to say, but I didn't need to use a jump spell. I was able to just do it on my own.
Right, of course. Hey, we've
So,
seen.
so how about this? And then I'll use enhance ability on Nephea and on Eumayos, and I'll use Bardic Inspiration on the Ranger and the Monk because I can't use
Okay.
that on myself.
What does Bardic Inspiration give me?
Gives you an extra D6. Yeah, actually D6, but it's a
Oh,
D6
okay.
for either roll. So if somehow you mangle, despite being at advantage, the jump check, you can still tack on to Bardic Inspiration for good measure.
But
Else
you can only
use
use
it on
it
perform.
once, right? You can only use it
Just
once,
once.
right? Yeah.
Just
So
once, but you don't have to decide you're going to use it till after you make the roll, Penny.
if I don't need it for the jump, I can use it on the performance. All
That's
right.
correct.
Yeah, and then use it whether you need it or not because it can only help. Right.
Okay. Good.
At least that's what makes sense to me. So
Okay. Does anybody else want to offer any other variation on that, or
squeeze another drop of blood out of the rules.
I mean, I have guidance as a cantrip, so I could just plus D4 to everybody.
That's true. And we're assuming that each of you are going at enough of an interval mixed in with the regular people who are doing this that we're going to
And
allow
the
you to,
fanfare.
yeah. So we'll allow, I guess if we wanted to be unreasonable, we would say, well, you're all going at once. So you've got to just decide which one person you're using your guidance on. But no, let's take this to the extreme absurd and see what a fairly resourceful party is able to do when they've are able to tap into all their resources. Okay, so the ritual is in full swing here, and the coaches look over at your party and say, which of you is going first?
I'll go.
Okay. So Amazon Dayanara, in her outlandish, colorful tunic and trousers, steps forward. So let's determine before you roll anything what it is you're going to be rolling. Tell me all the buffs that you have, and then we'll determine what dice you have to roll for each of your checks.
Just jump.
So you have jump. So for purposes of jumping over the bull, do you have athletics or acrobatics?
I have athletics.
You have athletics. So you're going to make an athletics check. What is your bonus?
+4.
Okay, you're going to make an athletics check. You're using the jump spell, so you can do it at advantage.
Yep.
So you can roll 2d20.
Yep. And I rolled and I made 19. So it means I'm going to use this additional dice to.
You're sort of getting ahead of the game. I wanted to go through all your modifiers before we started rolling things, Penny.
Okay.
Because you're forgetting that Amanda used guidance on.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So let's
So you
do
get
it. Moving ahead, let's go through.
Okay. I rolled a 15 and a 10, so I'm going to take the 15 and add 4. That's 19.
Okay. And you can add roll a d4 for Amanda's guidance if you want.
Oh, 4.
Okay.
So that's 23.
That's a 23.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other modifiers to that roll?
I do not.
Okay. So what? The bull charges at you.
Okay.
Across the courtyard. You connect with the bull and you go up over its head.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive, Dayanara. And this is just like the bull that you rode at the Megalos Alata farm a few months back.
Okay.
So, what do you now make for your performance check?
So I don't have that at advantage, do I? Or do I have that? Or does the jump give me
Let's
advantage
find
on that too?
Paul's not using that spell on you. I think he's just giving you the Bardic Inspiration. Is that right?
yeah, so Chaz gives her a pep talk. Rangers lead the way. You can do this, and then she gets an extra D6. So
All right. So you can roll. What is your charisma modifier? 0?
0.
You're going to roll. Do you have any charisma-based skills? I assume you don't have performance.
No, I do not.
Okay.
I have intimidation, but I don't think that really applies.
No. No. This
You're
is
not
purely a
gonna
stat.
intimidate that bull.
Did you see that frown when she went over the bull? Holy cow.
Right, that doesn't count. All right, so you're making a luck check, basically. You're rolling a d20.
Yep.
You're adding 1d6 to it for the Bardic
Yep.
Inspiration. So you
And
already,
it's not at advantage.
it is, no, but why would it be an advantage? There's nothing.
Well, you might
Yeah.
be nice.
It would be nice. But no, you had to use up.
Oh.
You're lucky that Amanda gave you the guidance, because
Oh, yeah.
otherwise you would have got a 19 and you'd be, well, not going over the head of the bull.
Yeah.
So
I'd be a science of stupid moment.
make a performance check to see how appealing you make this look.
Okay, I rolled a 16 on the D20 and a 4 on the D6.
Oh, well, that's pretty good. So you got lucky, and everything about Dayanara that is appealing comes through in this athletic act of prowess that she engages in, and the stirring words of the bard help her take it to the next level, and the crowd cheers as Dayanara runs forward, leaps magically enhanced, but they don't know that, as her strong hands hit the head of the bull in between its horns, as she flies up over it in a somersault, lands lightly on its back, and immediately vaults off of it and lands in a crouch behind the bull. And there's just a roar of applause, because you're the first foreigner of this particular ritual, not that they've ever seen, but tonight, who has danced, and usually the foreigners make it look bad. And you're really a foreigner. To these people, Greeks are foreigners, and you're an Amazon from the Black Sea. So they see you leap over this bull and bounce off of its back and land behind it, and it looks perfect. And you hear applause coming from the balconies all around you. And the coaches run out and lead you off of the area because somebody's trying to wrangle the bull now. They say, wow, have you done this before? That looked really good.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dayanara.
And I give everything a cheery wave to the crowd. Now I can relax.
Yeah. Well, the coaches say, wow, we're really impressed. You all guys have obviously done this before, maybe at one of the Hittite temples. Who's going next? Because their expectations are high now. All right, Abdros. They lead you forward and they brief you on the last minute things. Okay, so let's get your figure out what your dice are gonna look like.
Abdros does this naked and oily, by the way.
That is only appropriate.
As Abdros does everything.
What could
Anything
possibly
important.
go wrong? Naked
Naked and
bullhorns.
oily.
Naked and oily. That's how he does it.
Let's just put it this way. If you happen to roll a 1, there's no way we could depict artistically what happens to you that we could put in a book.
I'm not drawing that.
So basically, let's get
Amanda refused the commission already, and it hasn't even happened yet.
So hold on. So let's get your modifiers. You're rolling at advantage because you're using your
Yes.
gymnastic ability. So you're rolling
Yes.
2d20. What do you have, athletics or acrobatics?
Acrobatics.
Okay, so you're going to be adding your acrobatics modifier.
Yeah.
Vefea said she's casting guidance on you.
I love it.
And were you getting Bardic Inspiration on
Yes.
the son?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's do your technical check then. As you go running across the courtyard, you see the snorting bull, a fresh bull. They keep alternating the bulls. They don't want the bulls to get worn out here.
No, right.
The bull comes ripping across the courtyard towards you.
Oh, God. Okay. All right. Okay. So I rolled 2 dice. I needed a 15.
Okay.
I got a 2 on one of them, and I got a 16 on the other.
So
Because
a 2 is we'd have to characterize that as a catastrophic failure.
Oh, it'd be really bad. That would be awful. If I didn't have this advantage thing, I'd be totally hosed.
Well, I guess what you're thinking is, wow, sometimes I can really feel my monk training. I can really see how it helps me in situations like
This feels relevant right in this moment, right now. Yeah, no, fortunately I have a +5 acrobatics, so that gets me over the bull.
And roll in Amanda's D4 as well, just so we could see just how well you did.
I would rather, wait, does it have to be for getting over the bull?
No.
You can save guidance
It does
for
not.
whatever you want.
No, it can be.
Yeah, because the next roll is the one I really need help on.
That's right. So you got over 20. Yeah, Penny had to use hers, or it wouldn't have worked. You hit the horns of the bull, Abderos. You fly up over its head, and as the bull continues charging, you lightly bounce off of its back and land behind it.
All right. I have 1d4 guidance, 1d6 Bardic Inspiration, and 1d20.
A luck roll.
A luck roll. Because I'm doing this out of -1. So everything that I'm doing is despite the fact that everything Abderos does is naked and oily. Okay, I rolled a 7. So 7 + 3 + 1 is 11 - 1 is 10.
Right. Well, you know what? Any of the judges who are watching you realize what you did was completely technically competent. If they looked at you, but it's like, watching one of those Russian gymnasts. You know they're getting it right, but you just still don't like looking at it anyway. So you are completely technically competent. You know you are. You know you nailed it, because what did you get total? 24?
For getting over? Yeah.
Yeah. So you totally nailed that. But there's no panache to it. And nobody's going to say, oh, well, you should become an honorary bull dancer or anything like that. So the people who know you did it right, but you're not wowing the crowd.
He does it all robotic and he scowls the whole time.
Right. He doesn't look like he's having fun with it.
It wasn't fun. I did it just to show I could.
So he looks like a Russian gymnast.
Or he looks like a Russian gymnast.
So, yeah, there you go. So congratulations, Abderos. You succeeded. You understand, I'm not rolling damage for people getting gored or trampled here. So this is really going pretty well.
So far.
Who's
far.
next?
Oh, let's see if I can ruin that streak.
Oh, that sounds like Vafea is stepping up next. Okay, don't roll anything. Let's figure out what your dice pool is.
Not
Wait, are you
rolling yet.
doing this with the help of people or no?
No, I have my lovely party members throwing.
Oh, you have all
dice.
these spells. No, you're gonna
Yeah.
be fine.
So
It's gonna
who's
be great.
casting jump on you?
Who is casting jump on me?
I will.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So Diana is casting jump on you, and you're casting something on her, Paul? And you're muted.
I know. The enhance ability for charisma.
For charisma. And what will
Okay.
that do for her charisma check? Give her advantage on
Advantage. Yeah,
Excellent.
advantage.
That's good because
Okay.
I don't have much of a bonus on charisma, so that
Oh, -1.
It's
You don't
not
want
-1.
me to
And
fail.
you used up all your bardic inspirations at this point, Chaz?
I have 2 bardic inspirations, so
You've used them. Yeah.
yeah, and then
Okay.
the enhanced abilities were for myself, Mafea, and
Vafea.
and
Eumayos. Okay,
Eumayos,
so
right.
Vafea, I think what's going to happen is you're enhanced with a jump spell, and you know what you're supposed to do. So I think do you have athletics or acrobatics?
no,
Which is higher, dex or strength?
they're the same.
And I think they're +1, right?
Yes, they're both +1.
All right. So
I will also guidance myself.
you'll guidance yourself. So you're going to roll 2d20. You're going to take the best one. You're going to add a d4, and then you're going to add a +1. And I think that's going to be your roll. Does that sound right?
Right.
All right, let's do it.
That is my first roll.
Vafea
Yes.
and her.
One of those was cocked. I got I got a 19. I rolled a 19. I get a +1, so that is the 20.
That's the 20 that you need to actually succeed at this.
Okay, can I hang on to my guidance then for the second part? Because I
Yes,
got the
you
20 to get over.
So,
All right, I'll hang
Vathea-
on to it then, because I got myself over.
Vathea in her tawny dyer's skivvies goes prancing out across the courtyard. She leaps, magically enhanced, of course, but nobody necessarily knows that. Hits the horns of the bull, goes over the back of the bull, touches its back, and lands behind it. Just barely. You're the closest one so far. You need a 20 to have a basic success at this, and you got a 20. So that's actually pretty good, Vathea. I'm impressed. Now, let's see how
I'm
nice.
impressed too.
You're impressed too. Nobody ended up actually dangling from a horn as the bull charges across the courtyard. So this is
Thus far.
okay, so your charisma check, she has plus 0 on charisma,
I have a +1 on charisma.
plus
So-
1 on charisma. So you're
Yeah.
rolling 2d20 because you make it an advantage. Is that what your spell does, Paul?
Yes.
You're rolling 2d20 and you're adding +1 and +1 d4. Because you get your guide. So you can just roll the d4 right now if you want, because you're gonna use.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that because these d20s came up not as great. Oh boy, so I got a grand total of 12. So it looked awkward.
I won't
I
even.
landed
Wow.
on 2 finger guns.
Yeah.
The thing is, you made it over the bull, and everything you did was fine. I guess probably this would translate into you made it over the bull the way an adventurer would make it over the bull. You didn't make it over the bull the way a Cretean bull leaper would make it over a bull. So what you did was survive a charging bull by more or less going over it with a magical enhancement, touching its back and landing behind it. There's no artistic value to it.
No. I'm just as surprised to have survived as everyone else is. And it shows.
But what did you get on your charisma check, Penny? You got something really high, didn't you?
I rolled a 16 on the d20, uncharacteristically for me, and then I rolled the d6 from the additional bonus.
Yeah, so you did it right and made it look right. Okay, so you made
The hair. I had the hair,
The hair.
You
Yeah.
made it over the bull, Vathea, which is exactly what you needed to do. And the coaches run out and they say, "Good job. We can tell that you've really got your own style when it comes to something like this."
Oh.
All right, there's only 2.
I'll offer to show them some horseback riding tricks. She does trick riding.
Oh, that's true. Who is up next?
Eumayos, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because Chaz is going to go last. Well, Eumayos, you step forward, and the one little coach that's with you, she says, "He, you remind me of my dad."
Probably your granddad.
Eumayos, you begin your run across the courtyard. So let's figure this out. Do you have acrobatics or athletics?
He has animal handling +5.
He's going to use animal handling. Now, is someone casting jump on you?
Yes.
You're casting jump on him. Okay. So it's good you had all these spells at your disposal. It helps to have like a 4th level party for something like this.
Sure.
Right.
So
So
I also have, if I needed, action surge.
you probably won't need it, but let's see what happens. Okay. And then Vathea is going to cast a guidance on you, I think she said. So what you're going to do, Dad, is you're going to take 2 20-sided dice because you're magically enhanced with a jump spell. So
Okay.
2 20-sided dice. You're going to roll, I guess you don't need to roll the d4 yet unless you need it. You're going to roll 2 20-sided dice. You're going to pick the best one, and you're going to add 5 to it for your animal handling.
Ah! The best one was 11, so that's 16.
Okay, that's a 16. You can now roll a d4 for the guidance that Vathea gave you, and if you roll a 4, you will succeed this feat.
No, he rolled a 1.
So he gets a total of 17 on this?
It's hard to be an old fart. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Welcome to my world. It's awful. All right. That is a failure to get over the bull, but it is not a catastrophic failure. The bull is going to get an attack on you. It's not going to automatically hit you. It's not going to automatically do maximum damage to you. So this is not a catastrophic failure, but as you hit the horns of the bull, you're sort of wrenched to the side. You don't quite make it over in a vault. You're probably not wearing armor right now. So what is your dexterity?
16 plus 3.
Plus 3. So your armor class 13, and the bull attempts to gore you. It's just good that one of you failed so we can see what happens. So the bull attempts to gore you as you present yourself to it. The bull gets a 17 plus 7 is a 24. That is a hit. You push yourself up off the ground. You feel that the magical enhancement is helping you. You go up sort of at a cocked angle. The bull whips its head back and forth as you go over it, and you feel its horn embed itself into your side and punch between a couple of your ribs. You take 15 points of piercing damage as the bullhorn gores you.
I immediately cast Balm of the Summer Court and heal 4 of those.
Oh, and you feel that healed a little bit. Now, make a...
So the action surge doesn't figure into this?
The action surge, read action surge to me and tell me what it does, and then and we'll decide, because I don't want to just say no. I don't think it does.
On his turn, Eumayos can take 1 additional action on top of his regular action and a possible bonus action.
Yeah, you failed to vault over the bull, so now we're resolving the consequences of that. So the action surge would allow you to take an extra attack if you were able to attack something. I'm willing to have anybody else chime in here. Brenda, what are you thinking? I'm not seeing him taking an extra action at this point isn't helping.
No, I'm trying to think too. Like if we were super bootstrappy, you know, what does an action surge do? It means he can get out in front of the bull again and give it another shot.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, the action surge would allow you to make another attempt, but it doesn't reverse the failed attempt.
No, it wouldn't unless he action that he could spend on somehow mitigating it.
I would allow you, if you survive what's about to happen to you, because we're not done yet, then you can use the action surge to attempt as the bull runs back. You can attempt this again if you want. But first thing you need to do is make a strength saving throw. So roll a d20 and add your, look on your sheet where it says saving throws, Eumayos. Do you see that up near the top of?
Yeah.
Do you have strength as a saving throw? You do.
+3 for strength.
So roll a d20 and add 3 to the d20 roll.
So that's a 10.
+3 or 10 total?
10 total.
All right, well, 15 was the magic number. So the bull gores you. It flings you up into the air. You come crashing down onto the pavement in front of the bull. All right? And the bull attempts to trample you. So you tried to go over the bull. You got gored. You got flung onto the pavement ahead of it. And now it's running over you. And it slips in your blood. It falls on its side, and it skids. And the bull is now laying on its side, kicking its hooves violently in every direction. You feel some of your own blood spatter you. It rolled a 1 and slipped in your blood as it was charging and attempting to trample over you. You managed to kick and scramble out of the way. A couple of the aghast coaches run forward and grab you and drag you over to the side of the courtyard. And a couple of the handlers run out and are trying to calm the bull and get it back to its feet so it doesn't injure itself. So the bull actually fell over when it attempted to trample you. So this is a real scene. You're the only one of the foreigners who end up getting gored. And then when the bull tries to trample you, it actually slips and goes crashing into the flagstones of the courtyard. So it's memorable, if nothing else. Now, if a character fails, I don't see any reason to make a perform check. Does anyone see any reason to do that?
Well, sure. I mean, he's still alive, so he can, wave to the crowd or
Okay, well, let's have you make.
or
You can still make style points.
He's got a little
That's right.
flush.
That's fine. I'll agree to that. Okay, then make your performance check, Eumayos. Chaz, you cast a enhance.
Yeah, he has enhance on, right? So it's at advantage.
What's your a charisma modifier, Eumayos?
0.
Okay, so you're gonna roll 2d20, and you're gonna take the best one.
Sorry. 11.
My bad dice rolling is genetic. I'm sure you should see me in the games where I play, Dad. It's terrible. It's just terrible. I mean, I'm actually pitied by the other players. So
Hard to feel anything other than pity.
All right. Well,
Poor
you got
Icarus,
gored.
he's doomed.
You got gored, but you didn't get trampled, and you get dragged over to the side, and you don't take any more injuries. The ritual continues.
I'm gonna run over and put a heal on him.
Oh, okay. I assume you don't mean put a heel on his neck.
No, that's a knee.
Roll an attack. No, you can go ahead and cast a heal spell.
So you didn't tell me what the damage was from I took damage twice, right?
No, you took 15 points of damage from being gored. And then the bull slipped as it was trying to trample you. So you don't take any trample damage. You would have taken 12 points of bludgeoning damage when it trampled you. But you avoided that.
I put 7 points of healing into you.
Okay. So Paul gave you back 3 of the 15. Dayanara gave you back 7. So you're that's a total of what? 10. You're only down 5 points at this point.
Good.
The repercussions for this are most dire if the bull does max damage on you because you get a catastrophic failure and you take 40 points of damage.
Well,
and then probably you're subject to instant death. So
this would also be very brutal if there were other encounters during the day to deplete the party's resources, because we're full up. This is like our first encounter,
Right.
and we don't know, but presumption is, after this we're going to eat and then go to bed.
Yeah.
So we don't need to stock up our resources at this point.
yeah, exactly so. That's what happened at Megalos Alata. You remember we played it over 2 or 3 sessions, but there were 4 challenges that your party had to do.
Right.
By the time you did that last one, just guiding those undead horses around the arena wasn't that tough in and of itself, but you were all really depleted by that point. You were suffering from hit point loss. You used up all your spells. So something that was actually a fairly straightforward thing to do was tough and daunting because you've been worn out from having done stuff all day. This is just, if we wanted to make this more challenging, we could bait you into using up resources during the training during the day. We could give you a random encounter coming from Heraklion to the palace, or we could have something happen afterwards, which still might happen, like the ghoul attack on the palace that you end up having to help repel just for your own survival. But we'll see. There is something that's going to follow this. So, and we've still got another half hour to go, so we're going to be getting to it this evening. All right. You all survived. Oh, we haven't done you yet, Paul.
No, not yet.
Oh my God. All right. Well, let's see what happens with this. Well, tell me what we're looking at. The coaches come over and they say, well, we're sorry about your friend. Are you up for this?
Oh, sure. That happens to us all the time.
It's true, it does.
True, it does.
It's
Well,
not
they
a
are,
bull, it's going to be a lizard person, you know?
yeah, exactly. They are very impressed with how cool you are. They're like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. So what is your dice pool going to look like here, Chaz?
So I'm using a jump, so I'm doing my acrobatics at advantage, so that's 2d20 plus 4. And then I'm using Eagle Splendor, or, enhance ability for charisma, so that'll also be 2d20 plus 4 for my performance.
And you have a plus 1d4 for Vafea's.
Right, which
guidance.
I'll apply to whichever role needs it. So
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
Okay, then let's do this. You go, I guess, clattering across the. You're already creating a scene because the bull is clattering as it comes from one direction on its big hooves. You're clattering as you come from the other direction on your little hooves, and you're running across this courtyard toward this bull. Let's see how you do.
Yes, and it's all like in turbo because my move is 40, just like the bulls. So
Just
we're
like the
hauling
bulls,
ass
yeah.
at each other.
Actually, this bull has a 50.
Ooh,
Wow.
excellent. So I rolled a 16. Plus 4 is 20, so I made it over.
Yay.
I think we set the DC on this just right because even as a pretty experienced party, I'd say 4th level party where you have a lot of buffs and you've got enough hit points to survive things. 2 of you made it just on a 20 with a buff. 1 of you made it just on a 21. I think we've set this right for tension purposes.
Yeah, and that's with advantage. So
Yeah, 20 is a scary number to hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I think I'm feeling pretty good about this. 4 of you succeeded, none of you succeeded overly dramatically, and 1 of you failed. So I think we're kind of seeing the kinds of results that we probably want to see for a party like this.
yeah, a 25 would just about have been impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, you basically, even if I rolled a 20, I wouldn't get a 25
Yeah.
unless
So
I use the guidance.
we don't want to go with that. But I think the 20 and you being smart enough to have the ways to get advantage is really helping.
Right.
So
Okay. Perform check.
just made you hit the bull's horns, you go over it, your little hooves touch its back, and you feel it shudder. It's not used to hooves touching its back. And then you go vaulting off of it and land with click on the pavement behind it.
So my high roll was a 15, plus 4, plus 2 for the guidance is a 21.
That's pretty good. So people didn't know what to expect. Especially the foreigners, they don't know if you're a novelty Minotaur or what's going on. But your satyr goes running across the courtyard. He does everything, and he lands perfectly, and he makes it look exactly like it's supposed to. He looks just like one of these Cretan bull dancers from the fresco, and you can even imagine that someone's already thinking, ooh, let's do one with a satyr in it. So congratulations, Chaz. You did a good job with that, and it looked right, and the crowd cheers. The ritual
Chaz will prance around and use prestidigitation to, create some sparkly effects and bow himself off stage.
Okay. Well, then they will remember you, to be sure. Your party is led away and taken to a nice area, a balcony that you haven't been to. And you're taken to some tables there where you can watch the rest of the ritual. And now the rest of the students come out. So the young acolytes from this cult of the Bull of Crete come out, and they're doing all your leaping. They're leaping now. So you get a good show, and you get a good feed. The food is all different than what you're used to. Less meat than you're used to, a lot more vegetarian and seafood. And it's all cooked in different styles and with different spices. So it's all very, very foreign. And the whole myth of the labyrinth comes back to you as you're led up to the balcony that you're on. Because as soon as you're led inside, immediately you get lost as you're led down passageways and up staircases. And when you get brought out onto the balcony overlooking the courtyard, you're actually disoriented. You did not expect when you stepped through a particular doorway to suddenly be on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. So this whole idea of the labyrinth seems to be something that has a real palpable effect in this place. You're attended by servants. If you have any questions, you can ask them. The ritual continues and everything goes perfectly. And at some point, you notice a palace official standing in the doorway. And the palace official steps forward, and she bows at the waist, and she looks over your party members. And not all of you succeeded, and not all of you succeeded in an aesthetically pleasing way, but you are foreigners and you've never done this before. 4 of you succeeded and 2 of you did do it in a very aesthetically pleasing way. And she nods and bows to you, and she says, you accorded yourselves very well out there. Everyone who witnessed you was pleased. Would you like to accept an invitation to dance with the true bull of Crete?
Yeah.
Certainly.
When?
Now.
And
Eumayos may
Like now after a long rest, or right like now?
Like right now.
now.
What, Eumayos?
he's going to skip it.
To be fair, Eumayos did almost just die.
He's
So-
going to fear. It's not his thing.
And
Well, she presumably saw Eumayos get gored. And you see her eyes are drawn to the spot where he's bleeding on his side,
No, don't take my one.
bleeding on one of their little settees that you're sitting on while you eat your dinner. And she nods and she says, "Oh, that's just fine. Not a problem." Did anybody else decline to accept the invitation to dance with the true bull of Crete?
Oh, that sounds really fascinating.
we're all out of spells, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But we
I have
are
one or
pretty
two
much out of
left.
spells.
Well,
I
I'm
can cast guidance all day.
I
Oh,
have
all right.
I have another point of key. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I'm still good. I still have a couple first levels and a couple heals. So.
Oh, we're gonna be great. When
And wild
everybody's
shape,
super
so I can
beat
turn
up
into
by
a
this
bull, too.
ball, at least we can heal ourselves.
Well, I'm willing to try it. It might not go so well this time, but I'm willing to try it.
Well, Themistocles, the artillerist, who's up here in this area where foreigners are sitting, comes over to you, Eumayos, and he snatches the pitcher of wine away from one of the servants because they don't really pour fast enough. And he pours you a glass of wine and sits down next to you. And within about a minute, the two of you are telling stories about the one-day war with Rhodes and comparing notes about the various roles that you played in the war with Rhodes. And you've got plenty of common ground for things that you can talk about. So Themistocles has not been invited to whatever these other characters have been invited to. So he is going to spend the evening drinking with you, Eumayos.
That's cool.
And he seems like a congenial sort. He says, "Well, this wine is a lot better than what we had in the quarters, isn't it?" And anyway,
Yeah.
so the rest of you get to finish your dinner and finish your wine, and then you are led by this palace official out of the area that you're in, and you're attended by a couple of, they look like servants, but they have the demeanor of bodyguards or security people. So there are now the 4 of you, a palace official, and 4 servants, 2 ahead of you and 2 behind you. And you're being led down a narrow warren of passageways. You don't get led back the way that you were taken into this place. You are led through the palace of Knossos. You don't know how long, 10, 15 minutes, up passageways, down passageways. Periodically, you get a glimpse out of a window where you're able to see the moonlit countryside spread out before you, but you're in an area where you thought it was subterranean. So this comes as kind of a surprise. There's a complete sense of disorientation and a sense that you don't necessarily know where you are at any given time. But eventually, you are led into, I guess, what we would describe as a ballroom. There are chairs and benches all around its periphery. It's a very large room, big enough to hold a couple of hundred people, or maybe 100 people. There is a sort of overly large ceremonial throne at one end of this room. It doesn't look like a throne room. It doesn't look like a main throne room. It doesn't look like an area where people would be meeting with dignitaries, but it looks like a ballroom, an event room. And there are two huge, sort of oversized bronze double-headed axes crossed on the wall behind the somewhat oversized throne. And there are a lot of other people in here, foreigners and Creteans alike, and you see Abdros Tyrannon, this ancient 110 or whatever year old man he is, with his bald head and his somewhat withered face, his very sharp eyes. And you're able to tell Vethea that his robes are the plainest you've ever seen. There is no peasant that would want to be seen in robes as plain and unfeatured, as featureless as his, but you also realize that they're probably some of the most expensive garments you've ever seen. So they're completely understated black robes of incredibly expensive material and very fine workmanship. So he wants to look understated, but he is also displaying a phenomenal wealth that only somebody who happens to be familiar with clothing like you are would necessarily be able to pick up on. So there's a receiving line here. And all of you are lined up in a line. Tyrannon is at the head of the line and the nearest to a doorway that has curtains hanging over it, a large doorway, large ceremonial doorway, 10 foot high and 10 foot wide with double curtains hanging over it. There are many servants in here who have a security type demeanor. So probably about 20 or 24 security people, little tables with snacks and drinks on them, the receiving line, and somebody now comes out and says, you will soon be in the presence of King Asterion III of Crete. And they start going through a list of do's and don'ts. Do not look the king directly in the eye. Do not touch the king unless you are bidden to do so. Do not speak to the king unless he says something to you. Do not make any sudden moves toward the king at your own peril. Do not take any action to magically influence and affect the king, even if you think it is something that would be of benefit to him. Does anybody have any questions? He looks up and down the line here.
Nod.
And he's obviously a very senior official and protocol expert. Well, you hear a clamor, a murmur of people coming down a hall. You see the curtains, and you're way down at the end of the receiving line at the far end of the room. Tyrannon's is at the end nearest to the curtains. You see the curtains are pulled open by two servants who step to either side and tie them off. And then you can see in the hallway beyond a retinue of people coming into the room. And one of the lead people who comes into the room is a very handsome, regal looking, royal looking young man, probably, his late 20s, early 30s, but handsome and well dressed and with the demeanor of a king. And he begins to move through the line. And as he stops in front of Tyrannon bows at the waist, and then they exchange a few words. And behind him is a beautiful young woman, probably in her 20s, dressed in Cretan clothing, and she goes through the same routine. So probably some of you have done receiving lines before. And she nods and chats with Tyrannon. And then an older woman, very beautiful and very regal, 40s, 50s, she steps into the room and begins working through the receiving line. And then what I would venture to say none of you would have expected, a very large person, I guess technically what you would call, Dayanara, a monstrosity, but that's a technical term and not a very nice one that you would use in polite company.
Okay.
A very large being steps out of the shadows and joins the receiving line. And it is, by all accounts, a Minotaur.
Okay.
It is an 8-foot tall man, dressed in regal robes that do not hide his bull hooves, who has a huge bull's head, or I guess it's not a huge bull's head, it's just the size of a bull's head on a humanoid body. He's very, very, very hairy, as many Creteans are. And he moves as the last person into the receiving line, and you can all hear a murmur through the crowd, and you can hear Tyrannon say, as he bows lower than he did before, "Your Majesty." The receiving line moves up to you. The son of the king, who is at the head of it, Asterion IV, nods and smiles to each of you congenially, doesn't necessarily engage, but he's not the king, so if any of you have anything to say to the crown prince, you're certainly welcome to. The crown prince's wife is the next one in the line. The queen is then the third one, and the king is then the last one. He stops in front of each of you, and when he gets to you, Dayanara, he looks straight down at you. And
I can't tell because I'm not looking him in the eye. We were told
well, that's right. But he's looking down at you, and you can. God bless him. He's the kind of thing you were trained to kill, and that probably cannot be avoided by you. You understand that monstrosities like this are what you were trained to be aware of in battle. You don't have any weapons on you right now, of course.
This one's King of Crete. I am going to. My anxiety levels are on the rise, but I'm giving a deep bow.
Well, there is a snorting. Because he can only snort. He has a bull's head. And he's standing over you, snorting and snuffling. And he looks down at you and he says, "Amazon, you did well out there. My cousin says he was impressed with your performance as you leapt over him. Well done."
Thank you, Your Majesty. You're very kind.
And he continues on. He stops in front of Abdros. "A technical 10.
Technical 10.
And continues on. He stops in front of Vafea, and he says, "Oh, I love the color of those robes. Where did you acquire them?"
I made them myself. Thank you.
"Color is second only to the native crocus that we use for dye here." And then the monstrous king continues on. And he gets to Chaz, and he's, "Oh, it's Mini-Me." And you hear just laughter. And polite clapping from around the room. And then the receiving line is done with, and the king goes over to one end of the throne room, and he sits on his throne. Tyrannon is offered a seat next to him because Tyrannon is tantamount to a king. He's the second best thing to a king anywhere where he is. Music starts up. And people start going out and doing circle dances in the middle of the room. And you can tell the king is really intrigued by this. This is being done on his behalf. And you see that the dances, some of them are very ancient and some of them are very alien. There are these ancient Cretan dances, but some of them are really modern. And you can tell that modern dance instructors have been brought in to teach dances here. And you can tell that troops now who have come to Crete to actually perform dances are going out and performing for the king. So I guess that begs the question, Chaz. Did you want to try to perform your dance? And what was the dance that you just performed in a dance contest and you didn't win? You recognize some of the dance troops that were here were the winners from the dance competition a week earlier in Nafplion. So they obviously came in on other ships at the invitation of the king of Crete. So you had done some sort of a dance that was what? It was a recreation of one of your adventures, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was like a recreation of the trails through the footsteps of Hercules, interspersed with episodes of our experiences during the trials. And it's, kind of an absurdist ballet jazzy mix.
Well, you see at one point as the dance competition winners come up to the king that he gets off of his throne and he joins them and he starts instructing them to teach him their dance moves. So while they're dancing, the king is watching them and dancing with them. So basically, you've got a bunch of people standing out in the middle of the room doing their dance routine while this hulking Minotaur, who's, 7 times heavier than any of them, is capering around amidst them. Make an intelligence check or a perception check, Chaz.
Yeah, that's something I'm pretty good at. 20.
Well, a 20 is pretty good. What you're able to tell is that the king is unerring in his repetition of dance steps. That when someone teaches him something, he does not vary or hesitate by as much as a half step in replicating it. So as he's being taught a dance, he's automatically absorbing it. And as the dancers step aside, he's able to perfectly replicate every single move that they have done. He is the most consummate natural dancer you have ever seen. You have never seen anything dance as perfectly, unerringly, and nimbly as this hulking Minotaur has.
Okay, well, I will certainly want to perform my dance, and if there's, if he addresses me, I'll have something to say to him. So.
Well, one of the chamberlains is just going through and making sure that anybody who has something that might amuse the king, you have a chamberlain now in front of you who's just jotting down acts on a wax tablet with a stylus, and seems to think that you have something that you're trying to get their attention about.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll talk to the chamberlain.
Okay.
I have a dance, and His Majesty might particularly enjoy it since I have hooves and he has hooves. So the moves might be, particularly suited to him. Although he is easily the best dancer I've ever seen.
That I didn't even consider the connection of the hooves to hooves. Oh, we've got to give you a bonus on this, don't we? because you did this before for a human audience and you had sort of mediocre results, but this isn't a human audience anymore, is it?
No,
All
it
right.
isn't. At least not the audience that matters.
So, right, exactly. You have an audience of 1 now. All right. So is this something that your other party members are going to be part of, or something that you're doing yourself?
It originally was just for me. So, they could certainly participate, but, it wasn't meant like that.
No,
So.
will it just be you?
Yeah, I think it's just me. And if I whisper to Nefea, can you help me out here?
Sure. Ooh,
I could always use a little coaching, guidance.
here's
All right.
a little guidance for you.
Well, you will have Vafea's guidance. That won't hurt one bit. Okay, Paul, what kind of so what is your performance check normally?
+4.
It's +4. That's pretty good. You can have a D20 +4 plus 1D4 for the guidance, and you're just going to want to use that because there's no DC. There's only how well you do. So I guess the question is this. What bonus do you get for having a hooved audience when you're a hooved character? That is a unique situation.
Well, it depends on how generous you want to be, right? So it's either at advantage or I'd say at a +2 maybe.
You know what? And those are the two extremes I was thinking. It's got to be between +2 and advantage. What do you think, Brenda?
Because advantage is like a +5. If you're not rolling advantage, it's
is
a
a +5.
Mathematically, yeah.
Well, why don't we do advantage? Because how often do we have a dance off?
With a satyr and a minotaur?
Well, it's the confluence is just too perfect.
It really is. And there was just a dance contest sponsored by this guy that you were at a week before. Okay, then you can roll at advantage. You can add your +4 for your performance, and you can add a D4 for Vafea's generous and canny guidance.
All right. Here goes. Yes! What did I just roll?
You just rolled a 20.
I did. And I rolled a 4. So that's a 20. That's a 28.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
So you got a 28. So you did so unexceptionally in the dance contest in Naphtalion a week before. And now you go out and you do the same dance, but you just kind of nail it, and you nail it for the right person. Well, you know what? None of the other troops that would have been here, none of them have hooves, and none of them are better performers than you necessarily, and nobody's going to get a 28. So the king is overcome. You do your dance, and you're doing all your gesticulations and your farcical recreations of the things that your party did. And you act like one character, and you act like another, and you act like a monster. And the king is overcome, and he's just laughing and laughing and laughing, and he goes over and he picks you up like a little doll, and he hugs you, and he says, "Thank you, Master Chaz. Thank you. Thank you. I cannot remember the last time I had a dance that was so hard for me to keep up with, even though I'm unerring in these things, and that I enjoyed quite as much as this. You have gained my favor, and we're going to have to determine what that means. But I would say that your characters never meet a monarch. They never dance with a monarch. They never dance with a monarch that has the same kind of appendages they do. And they never get a 28 when that happens. So you're going to get some sort of a boon from the king. And we don't have to decide what that is tonight. But you have gained the favor and the attention of the king of Crete. So there will be gifts for everybody in your party. But there will be something special for you, Chaz. And we'll have to figure out what that is. So everybody is going to get some kind of a gift. And of course, you were here. You didn't pay to be here. You're here as guests of the King of Crete, who you have now met, and who's just the nicest guy. I mean, he's got fangs, and you can tell he's got a drooling issue that he's got to stay on top of.
It is technically a monstrosity.
Who doesn't?
What?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? He's technically a monstrosity. You can tell that they're using a lot of perfume to sort of keep the bull smell down, because he's just going to have that. There's just no way around it.
Plus,
So he is a hulking, dangerous monstrosity. He is, in fact, the Minotaur. He is the Minotaur of Crete. He is Asterion the Third. And if any of you make your mythology checks, and some of you would, you'll remember that the Minotaur that Theseus fought was actually named Asterion, and he was the presumptive heir of the throne of Crete. So this guy could be descended from the Cretan Minotaur that Theseus fought. He certainly is claiming that spiritually by assuming the name Asterion, and he's a damn Minotaur on top of everything else. So I would say that all went very well. That all went about as well as it could have. Well, the event continues for a few more hours, and you're able to drink and circulate. You all get to trade a few polite words with Andre Taranin if you want to. And he recognizes your order, Abderos, your order of monkhood, because it's a distinctly Cohen order. So he nods and says, by Hermes Zenodios, it is an honor to make your acquaintance, monk. He nods and compliments your robes, Vafea. He's very pleased to meet you, Dianara. This is Taranin, the 110-year-old man, and his bodyguards are always close around him, and you actually can't make contact with him. So there's always two people just sort of obliquely between you and him, and they look dangerous, and he looks frail. So they're trying to keep him safe, but he is congenial. He doesn't say too much to any of you, but he does make all of your acquaintances because he knows everybody, and now you know him. And he nods and he smiles at Chaz in particular, because Chaz was the standout with his dance off with the King of Crete. So I think this is where we will conclude our session. We've got some follow-on adventures on Crete that we're going to do because Eumayos' player, Michael H. Varhola, had requested an adventure that tied in with the Cretan crocus, which also happens to be something that gets made into a very valuable die that's no longer available on the mainland. So in our next session, your party is going to go off in search of the Cretan crocus somewhere inland, which I think will tie in with a number of things in your characters' backstories. So that's what we'll do for the next session. But this is where we're going to tie this one up. For those of you who joined us to watch this, I hope you enjoyed it. We try to do some fun and interesting things, some quirky things. The characters are all in an alien land right now, so everything is a little strange and different than it would be in their own land. But if you enjoyed this stream, check out some of the previous ones we did, and be sure to join us for the next one when our characters continue in the footsteps of Hercules. Thank you.